Hello, my name is James Mandelbaum with Gigamon. Today we're here to talk about configuring Fabric Manager version 5.7 and below. If you're trying to configure 5.8 or higher, please look for one of my other videos. The agenda today, we're going to review what Fabric Manager is. We're going to go through the installation options. We're going to configure via the command line. And then we're going to log into the graphical interface to show you what the user experience should be. Fabric Manager is our single pane of glass orchestration layer that manages your on-prem, virtual, and cloud offerings from Gigamon all in the same interface. It provides some automation through some built-in wizards to configure different things like inline SSL. It configures your pass-all maps, everything through an automation process. Now, you can do all of these, of course, by hand, but the wizards really make it easier. The other thing that Fabric Manager is it is our API interface. So if you have automation tools, if you're using things like Ansible, Chef, Puppet, or you do any kind of integrations and you want to do some automations, we have a full REST API available that integrates with Fabric Manager. Fabric Manager is designed to be run as a virtual appliance, and we deliver it in a few different ways. First, and probably the most common, is as an OVA for VMware. But we also give it to you as an ISO, so if you want to build that out in VMware and build it with customized options, different memory sizing, different storage, different capacities with virtual CPUs, you can build it out with the ISO from scratch. Of course, it's probably easier to take the existing OVA and tweak it, but we give you that option. We also give it to you in an ISO form to deploy into Microsoft Hyper-V as well as KVM. When you install it, the first time that you run it, you're going to connect to it as an admin privileged user. The first time you're going to complete the configuration start, and it's going to ask you for all of the settings in one single pass, and we're going to walk through that, where it's going to ask you for your IP and your subnet mask, and it's going to ask you for default route NTP. But in the end, you're also going to have to change the default password. The default password is lowercase admin followed by the password of admin123 uppercase A exclamation point or bang. Let's go ahead and walk through it. So as we get our login prompt, we're going to go ahead and log in as admin, and the password is admin123 capital A bang. The first thing it's going to do is ask you for a host name. You can accept the default or you can type in whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and call it Fabric Manager. It's going to ask you if you want to use DHCP. By default, no. I would recommend you give it a hard-coded static IP address. I'm going to go ahead and give it an address and a subnet mask, a /24, default gateway, primary DNS, a domain name. In my case, I'm not going to enable IPv6, but if you say yes, it'll ask you for the same information. Now, unfortunately, we cannot leave the admin password alone. If we hit enter on it, it's going to tell us you must change it. So we'll go ahead and do that. And it says you must change the default. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a new one. It's going to ask me to do it again. It's going to ask if I have additional domain name servers. I'll go ahead and give it one. Do I have any additional domain names or domains? No. Do I want to enable NTP? Normally, I would recommend that you enable NTP. And in this case, I'm going to say no just to make it easier. But at this point, you would say yes, and you would provide the NTP servers. And it's going to read back everything I just entered. I want to verify that this is exactly what I want. I'm going to verify my host name, the IP address, and the subnet, my default gateway, my primary DNS, my domain name, and additional domain name servers if I have any, additional domains, and normally I would, of course, enable NTP, but just for the sake of demo purposes, I said no, and I'm going to go ahead and enter, and it's now going to go ahead and make the changes. Now, one thing I want to point out here is you'll notice if you never need to return to this wizard, you're going to type configuration space jump dash start while you're in the configuration mode, and that will restart these. It takes a couple minutes to get this run. Once it's completed the configuration, It'll come back and drop you to the prompt. At this point, you're ready to move on. Once you've run through the basic configuration, all the rest of the configuration and settings is done through the graphical interface. While you can do some settings and configurations at the command line, of course, we would typically want to do the rest through the browser. To do this, we'd fire up our browser, we'll connect and log in with using admin and the new password you provided. I would recommend that you create additional users so that you can create some role-based access controls. And by default, if you connect to it through HTTP on port 80, it will redirect you to 443, which we're going to do. And by default, you can SSH into the box on port 22, but it can be changed. The command to do that would be SSH server ports followed by the port that you want SSH to respond on. Let's go ahead and run through the configuration. I'm at my browser. I'm going to go ahead and type in the address to the box. It's going to tell me that it's not private. It is a self-signed certificate, so I will have to accept that and move forward. I will then go in, type in my username, which is going to be admin, followed by the password I created. Now I'll be brought up to the EULA, which I need to see the EULA. I can go ahead and scroll through it, and then once I can get there, I can accept the terms, click OK, and I am now inside Fabric Manager. To configure Fabric Manager, like I said, you could do everything through the command line if you want, but typically I would want to do it and configure everything through the graphical user interface. So I can see my audit logs, reports, and configuration will be through system. So everything is done here. I can apply my licenses here. I can go ahead and configure user management. Everything can be done here. Authentication. I can configure and add users right here. Remember, if you ever want to go back and redo your wizard, you would log in, SSH into the box. You would type enable, configure terminal, and then once you get there, you would type configuration jump-start, and that would rerun the wizard. Thank you very much. Look for more of my videos on the community page as well as the Gigamon YouTube channel. Be sure to follow me on Twitter.